He's currently the Chief Executive and Managing Director of his consulting firm, True Balance. True Balance offers executive coaching and keynote speaking engagements, with its main goal being to help business leaders achieve their full potential at work, home, and in the communities. As Chairman and CEO of XRS Corporation, Jay successfully positioned XRS for a successful acquisition by Omnitrax, which was a $178 million all-cash transaction. Prior to joining XRS, Jay was President and Chief Executive Officer of Lawson Software, one of the country's largest enterprise software companies. Jay began his career at Lawson in 1987 as an account executive. During his tenure as CEO, the company completed a $200 million initial public offering while growing revenue from $100 million to $430 million. Jay is an active regional business advocate and has served on the board of directors for several businesses and currently board chairman of the nonprofit organization Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge.
All right, gang. Make this interactive at the end. Certainly you can ask any questions towards the end. But to start out, I want you to do something. I want you to picture a skinny white kid on the back of a flatbed pickup truck, driving through the ghettos of Philadelphia. You see, I'm with my dad, and we're delivering beer. And we're delivering beer in the ghettos of Philly. It's the 70s. And my dad had this is one of 3 jobs he always had. He always had, 2 jobs, and one was going up to North Philly on Friday afternoons and all day Saturday delivering beer. And I would go with him. So I was like 6th grade, 5th grade, all the way through, half of high school. And it'd be Saturdays, we'd be delivering beer. It'd be like 6, 7 o'clock at night. And I was like 6th grade. I remember standing on the, the steps with a case of beer. My dad's pounding on the door, bam, 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 he screamed, "Beer man!" I don't know how they do it in the ghettos today, but in those days they didn't answer the door. They would shout down from the window. They'd scream, "I ordered that beer at 10 o'clock in the morning. Where have you been?" And he'd scream up, "Do you want it or not?" And he looked at me. He always did this. He goes, "They always want it." So if you're willing to deliver beer in the ghettos of Philly, customer service really doesn't matter. I live in the suburbs of the Twin Cities now. I actually answer the door. I actually, whether it's pizza or Amazon's coming. And it wasn't that long ago, the Girl Scouts were there. And I bought like 5 boxes of those Thin Mint cookies, from these 2 Girl Scouts. And when they were leaving, I could swear one turned to the other one and said, "They always want it." So I learned a ton from my dad. The main thing I learned, is this echoing a little bit? The main thing I learned was that you got to work hard. You took an emphasis of 3 jobs. This might be catching it here, guys. And what I added to working hard was working smart. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I get a ton of requests to talk, not only a Christian speaking like this, but others. And mainly in the secular world, it's asking about success. And the reason I get asked a lot, at least in Minnesota, I get asked about success is because I've been in magazines and newspapers and on TV. But when I go back to Philly, it's a completely different question. They're like, "How'd you get out of the neighborhood? How'd you make it out?" See, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where I grew up, there was a lot of people going to Penn State, but there's just as many of my friends going to the state Penn. We had a tough neighborhood. Our school color was orange. Most of our guys weren't making it. And so when they're asking me, they're saying, "Jay, how'd you get out of the neighborhood? How'd you do it?" They're doing it with shock and awe as they're trying to figure this out. And for me, as I go to try to define success, I always tell people, I said, my dad was a success. Is that off? But see, my dad was a success, and the reason he was a success is not because he had a lot of money or because he was a CEO. He was a success because he had something that I would say all of you should be looking at for success. He had my respect. He had my admiration. I valued and appreciated my time with him. And I loved him. And he was this big, tough, wise guy from Philly, and he loved me too. And the reason I know is because he told me, even in his behavior. And so with that said, the reason I'm in front of you tonight is I have a story of perseverance. But more importantly, I have a story of hope and faith. And what I want you to take away from this is I want you to understand that God can change the world through you. No matter what you're doing or where you are. God can change the world through you, no matter what you're doing or where you are. Back to my story, it starts really with Psalms. And if you go back into Psalms chapter 25, verse 4 and 5, it says, "Show me the path where I should walk, O Lord. Point out the right road for me to follow. Lead me by your truth and teach me. For you're the God that saved me. All day long I put my hope in you." All day long I put my hope in you. And remember I said I learned how to take my dad's DNA of working hard and adding working smart to it. What I meant by that, I was a big goal setter. And goal setting got me focused and allowed me to prioritize things. So I know where I was spiritually in January of 1998 because I went back and looked. Went back and looked at it. And I'd written down, I had 3 pages of goals. Number 10, bottom of the page, last page, barely fitting in, I wrote spiritual. Have to go to church more often because my children need the guidance. I didn't need it. My children needed it. I didn't have any foundation. I didn't have any foundation in the Lord. I didn't have any foundation in Christianity. And I was going to find that you don't have a foundation, you're going to fall a long, long, long way. January 3rd, 1998. I'm living in the Twin Cities and my parents come in from Philly and they're visiting us for the holidays. And my dad that day went out to a local hunt club. Went out to the local hunt club. After we went hunting, we went to a bar. Went to a bar, stayed way too long. I was driving home drunk. Missed a turn, went down a hill, and I hit a train at 60 miles an hour. And I don't remember much. But I remember waking up in Hennepin County Trauma Center, and I am a mess. And I am in a lot of pain. And I've got a lot of people working on me. And I could look up, and I could see my mom, and I could see my wife, and I could see something was terribly wrong. My mom leaned down to me, and she said, "Your dad didn't make it." I said, "What?" And she said, "Your dad didn't make it." I'm going to tell you, you don't know what pain is until you hear something like that. I was responsible for killing my father. Man I respected, admired, valued, loved. And I'm telling you, I had no foundation, so I spiraled out of control. I was going to go through a lot of operations. I was in a ton of physical pain, but this new emotional pain was making the physical pain just pale in comparison. I was gone. I could see my wife talking to me, but I couldn't hear her. She looked in my eyes and said, "You were gone." And different priests over the next couple of days and pastors are coming into my office, or coming into the hospital room, and I'm kicking them out. I'm saying, "Get out. Don't you understand? I'm responsible for my dad's death." And that's where I was for 3 or 4 days. And I remember going through a lot of operations. I'd be in the room, and I had a clock at the end of the room. I'd close my eyes, and I would just get tormented. I would be tormented. I'd wake up sweating. If hell's worse, I just describe it as hell. If hell's worse than that, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm just getting tormented, open my eyes, thinking hours went by, maybe 5-6 minutes. And that's where I was. Not coming back. Mentally gone, physically challenged. One day, nobody's in the room. And a total strangers come to their room. And he's using words like sinner and forgiveness. I said, "Hey man, I feel like I'm at the top of the sinner list. I was drinking and driving, I lost my dad." He says, "You say this prayer with me, you receive forgiveness." I said a prayer that I knew Jesus died for my sin. I knew that I wanted to follow him, and I wanted him into my life right then and right now. And it was like, bam, it was like the Holy Spirit just came in and connected to my soul. It was like I exhaled all that guilt. And then he left. He left. And I don't know how much time went by, but my wife came in, and after a certain period of time, she walked in, she saw a completely different person. I sat up, I looked at her, and I said, hey, hon, I just accepted Jesus in my life. Anybody that's become a Christian knows once you do that, your life just gets better. Right? It does. It gets better in so many ways because I have a new foundation, but I have a lot of consequences. I'm sitting in my driveway. I'm in a wheelchair for a few months. And I'm in my driveway and I'm reading the letter from the state. And it's saying, we're prosecuting you for criminal vehicular homicide. 4-year prison sentence. 4-year prison sentence. What's this mean to me now? I thought you'd just give me my life back, Lord. Now you're going to take it from me again? My wife and I would pack up the thing. We got to go see lawyers. You see, I'd received forgiveness from God. I'd received forgiveness from my family. I had not received forgiveness from the state. There is consequences for all of our behaviors, and there were certainly consequences for mine. We packed the bag, the wheelchair up. We go see lawyers, and they said the same thing each time. They said, "Look, Jay, if we do everything right, we do it. All the stars line up. You won't have to go 4 years in prison. You'll only have to do 2 years in jail." And my answer was the same thing each time. What's plan B? Because that ruins my life. That ruins my life. I'm saying to myself, Lord, what's this mean to me now? And to the Word of God, it says, for you're the God that saved me. Back to Psalms. Show me the path where I should walk, O Lord. Lead me by your truth. Truth to me started to become the Bible. Started to become Bible, which Keith, you and I are talking, I never read. I never read until this point. But in 2 Corinthians 5:17, it says, what this means is those who become Christians become new persons. They are not the same anymore, for the old life is gone and the new life has begun. And I'm in a trial. And I'm in a trial for 8 months. And I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I'm not spinning this thing. This was me. I was driving. I was the one drinking. My dad was drinking as well, but I'm guilty. And I don't know if you've ever been in a nightmare like this, where you close your eyes at night and you're thinking about it. And as soon as you open your eyes in the morning, you're thinking about it. And I'm thinking about it. My self-talk's going, if I go to jail for 2 years or 4 years, I'm going to lose my job, lose my house, I'm going to lose my wife. You could take a bad situation, just pile on and make it worse. I've been married 31 years. My wife was an asset. But I could pile on and make it worse, and it's just piling on. And I'm saying, lead me by the truth, Lord. Lead me by the truth. And I'm reading the Bible, and I'm in the Philippians. And Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 and 7 says, starts with, don't worry about anything. I'm like, hey, Lord, I'm worried. I'm worried about everything. I am really worried. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. If you do this, you'll experience God's peace, which is far more wonderful than the human mind can understand. And I receive peace. I receive peace in the middle of a trial where I'm guilty. What that meant is I could go to sleep. That meant I could get up and fight for my life. I try to keep my job, go meet my lawyers, fighting for my life. Even though I was in this crazy chaos situation, I had a newfound strength and newfound peace. You see, I had given my life to the Lord in that hospital bed. But I still was trying to control my life. One of my biggest challenges I even have to this day. It was this point where I just had to say, hey, I got to surrender my life. I got to give it to you, Lord. I'm in a journey right now that doesn't have an answer or an outcome that I like, that I can see. I got to give it to you. And I give it to God. Show me the path where I should walk, O Lord. Point out the right road for me to follow. Lead me by your truth. That September, Lawson, the company I'm working for, where I have this skyrocketing career, is having an event in New Orleans. And I missed the first day. I missed the night. I missed most of the second day. And I walk into an auditorium with about 400 people in it. And my division had just knocked the ball out of the park, and I had a lot of great men and women working for me. And it's the first time most people are seeing me. And even though I'm either on crutches or using a cane, it looks like I'm healed. And I walk up to the microphone and to the podium to give a presentation, And I get 400 people stand up and give me a standing ovation. One of the highlights of my business career. And when I got to the microphone, what I felt like saying was, yesterday I was sentenced to 6 months in jail, 10 years probation. Standing ovation, going to jail. What kind of roller coaster ride are you on? You're on one. Might not be as high as standing ovation or as low as going to jail, but you're on a roller coaster ride. Where are you going to for your strength? Where are you going to for your humility? Where are you going to for your peace? Where are you going to for your forgiveness? Where are you going to for your future? At this point, I'm going to Jesus. I have a newfound strength. I have a newfound life. I have a newfound peace. All by byproduct of me just now having this relationship with Jesus Christ. So I'm getting ready to go to jail, and I'm trying to hold my life together. I'm trying to keep it together. I'm trying to keep my job together. I got to get rides to and from the jail. I'm not going to let my kids come down and see me in that orange jumpsuit. And I'm getting ready, and I'm getting anxious. I'm getting angry. And I'm getting everything else. And I'm back into the Word, and I'm in the first Colossians. It says, we also pray that you'll be strengthened with His glorious power, so that you have all the patience and endurance that you'll need. And I go to jail. I go to jail. And it's a funky place. And I'm trying to hold my life together, and they always tell you that first night they hear that door close, it's a different world. And I'm with a whole bunch of different people. And people are in jail are asking me, they're saying, where are you from? And the first couple of people I would say, well, I'm from Eden Prairie, Minnesota. And after I told the third or fourth person, I'm like, why am I telling these guys where I live? If I see any of you guys in Eden Prairie neighborhood, I'm actually calling the cops. You know, what they meant was, where were you from? What are you in for? You know, and they could always match the crime and the time. You know, where you're from. And so I meet my roommate. He looks like Louis Farrakhan, black militant. And I'm like, oh, and I'm like, what's he in for? Robbery, you know, dealing drugs, double homicide, boom, 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 down his list, you know. His name was Andrew, and Andrew was the real deal. He had found Christ in the prison system somewhere. And he was the real deal, and he actually helped me out a lot. He was, you know, helped me guide me through a lot of the things I got through. And I used to go to, Andrew and I would pray before we go to bed at night. And I always did this with him. I say, Andrew, we've got to go back into the Old Testament. We've got to go back to the 10 Commandments. You know that one about thou shalt not kill? I want to make sure you have that out of your system before we go to sleep tonight. So I'm in jail, and I'm managing, barely keeping the line. It's a very thin line keeping me, and I'm keeping the job, and I'm going, and I got to get rides to and from. It's pretty arduous. And Lawson is having an event in January. The event's in Key Largo, Florida. And Bill and Richard Lawson, who own the company, have been great to me through this process, and we're trying to keep it as low-key as possible. But if I miss this event, it's going to be a big deal, so I got to get there. So I go see my probation officer, and I said, I need to go to Key Largo, Florida in January. And she said, you're in jail. And I go, I know, believe me, I know. But you don't understand, if I don't make it, it's going to be a big deal. She goes, you're in jail. I go, I heard you the first time. You didn't hear me. I need to get there, blah, 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 and back and forth 20 times. I finally, just hypothetically, what has to happen for me to get there? She goes, you got to get your lawyer to write a letter to the judge. It will not happen. I said, fine. I go see my lawyer. I said, I got to go to Key Largo, Florida in January. He goes, you're in jail. I go, I know, but I got to get there. He goes, you're in jail. Back and forth. I go, Bill, just do me a favor. Write the letter to the judge. He writes the letter to the judge lets me go. I'm going to go down to Key Largo, Florida. I get to this resort. I'm without a doubt the happiest person at this resort. I'm out of jail, and I'm going back to jail when I get back. I got 3 days or 4 days down, and I'm the happiest person. And I'm down there, and my cousin, who grew up with me in Philly, was working at this place. And the company we're with had a big event. We're on a boat. We come off the boat, and his name's Johnny. And this is a point where we come off the boat, and Johnny and I would go out and do, you know, a bunch of dumb stuff. And out of nowhere, Johnny looks at me and goes, Jay, can we go back to your room and pray? And it was at that point I realized why I was allowed to go. See, it says in Matthew 19:22, heavenly speaking is impossible, but with God, everything is possible. And I started to figure out how I was allowed to go. And I'm keeping the job together, and I'm back and forth, and I get out, and I got probation officer, and I'm starting to travel, and I got to go see her before I travel, and when I come back, I got to prove it, and it's arduous and getting hard, and Lawson's moving really fast, and Bill Lawson and Richard Lawson are trying to take the company public, and Bill Lawson's taking me along with him as he starts to meet investment bankers, and I'm starting to adapting what it takes to make the company public. Bill would start the presentation out, and if you ever did this with investment bankers, you spend the whole afternoon, a night out, and then the whole day with them, and they're just tearing your business up. He would spend the first slide, he was a developer, he didn't really want to do it, and then he'd hand the presentation over to me. And I'd give it, and after about a year of doing this, I'm learning, I'm getting it, and Lawson's picking up, and the investment banking community every time said, hey, great job, Jay, wrong job title. I don't know, forget what my job title was, they said, you need to be CEO. Bill and Richard have been great to me, so I'm not pushing them for this title. But Lawson moves into a brand new building in the beginning of 2000 in St. Paul. 14-story building, brand new. Lawson software all over the outside of it, gigantic, you know, neon, huge press, got more press than we deserved. And when we move in, Bill and Richard make me president and CEO of Lawson. And I got the job for 2 days. And the director of HR comes up to me one day and she goes, Jay, do you realize that this is a no smoking building? I go, of course, it's a brand new building. She goes, do you realize Bill Lawson's smoking? I go, no. She goes, you got to tell him he's not allowed to smoke. I go, why me? She goes, because you're president. I go, this president job sucks. I go down and I see Bill, he's on the 8th floor, he's in the middle, he's nowhere even near windows. I'm walking towards his room. It smelled like that campfire smell that you get, you know, you can remember, you know, you see it. I look at him, I go into his office, there's smoke, you know, and I sit across from him and he had these glasses. He would look over his glasses and I say, hey, Bill, do you know that this is a no smoking building? And he looked at me and he looks over his glasses, he goes, Jay, it doesn't say no smoking software on the outside of that building. I said, Phil, it doesn't say Philip Morris software either, you know, but go ahead, smoke, keep going. And boom, Lawson's picking up gears. We're getting ready to go public. The fiscal responsibility has gone up dramatically. Strategy as a private company had to change for a public company. The team that we were working with was great. I was bringing a lot of people up with me, but I had to bring some people from the outside. Chief financial officer as an example. Had to change out the whole board. I was no longer just influencing employees and customers, and now I did influence employees, customers, and investors. And we had to take results to a whole new level of accountability. I was doing all that, if this was about balance, I was doing all that as I was trying to make the basketball games and the dance recitals. Trying to figure it out. And we're getting ready to go, and we got the summer of 2001, we got the whole thing fired up, we got them focused, I got, you know, all the momentum. September 2001, we're ready to take it public. JP Morgan and Lehman Brothers are our co-lead bankers, and what happens September 2001? 9/11. And the Lehman Brothers building goes down with the towers. Guys that we're working with go down with it. Big distraction. Momentum lost. They come running back to me. JP Morgan, Lehman Brothers come back to me right before Thanksgiving, about the middle of November. They said, you're going to miss Thanksgiving, get on the road. We go on the road for about 3 weeks. We're doing presentations. December 7th, 2001, we did the 5th largest IPO in Minnesota history. $200 million we raised at a $1.4 billion market cap. January 3rd, 1998, I was in an accident. Was in pieces in Hennepin County Trauma Center. Went through a trial, went to jail, got my job, got out, got my career back. December 7th, 2001, in less time than it takes you to go to college or to high school, I went from convict to CEO. It's a story of perseverance, but more importantly, that's a story of hope and faith. Hope and faith as we go through it. See, for all of you, what I would say when we talk about this, when I want to do the takeaway, is that I know God can impact the world, and He impacts the world through us, through you, no matter where you are or what you do. And the challenge is that every time, and I talk to a lot of men and they always say, what does God want me to do? What does God want me to do? And they're looking. Sometimes I say, he might want to do something through you right where you are. Right with who you are today. Right with whatever it is you're doing today. And sometimes we're always looking, we miss the opportunity of him to take advantage of what you're doing right now. And the reason you miss it, or the reason I used to miss it, is because you're immersed in the moment. You're busy. You're immersed in the moment. And it's what happened to me when Luis Plow came to town. Luis Plow, Keith, you remember, he's an evangelist, Spanish evangelist, on a scale in South America with Billy Graham. And he's up here in North America and he does these big revivals. And he does these big festivals. He's coming to the Twin Cities to do one. And there's a guy named Dave Gibson at Grace Church. He's trying to get me to help with this whole festival. And I'm running this public company and I'm saying, no, I don't have time. And he's calling me. I go, no, I don't have time. He goes, man, you got to come and meet Luis Plow. And I'm going, Louis Palui, who is he? I don't know who he is. I don't care. I don't want to do it. I'm busy. I'm immersed in the moment. And I'm missing this calling. And Dave, to his credit, stays all over me. He goes, we're meeting at this country club. It's right by your house. Stop by for dinner. I go, I can't do dinner. I'm too busy. He goes, just stop by for dessert. I go, okay. I'm going to this country club. My whole attitude is, how do I get in and out of there without doing anything? That's what attitude I'm going in with. I go in, and I meet Luis Plow, and he's dynamic. He's great, awesome. Ultimately becomes a friend of mine. But at the time, I'm thinking, how do I get out of here? I'm immersed in the moment. I don't have time. And I'm getting out, and he gets up, he presents, and then I'm getting out, and I'm trying to run out before the crowd, and I'm this close to the door, I'm getting out, and this big guy gets in my way. There's a guy named Wayne Hertzlinger. Family owns the Miami Dolphins. And Palau had just done an event down in Fort Lauderdale, and he had run it. And he was here to tell us what the event was like to run it. And I'm literally trying to get around him. He's a big guy. I'm trying to get around him. He goes, when I came to this event, all I wanted to do was just get out of there as quick as possible. And I'm thinking, Wayne, you're the only thing standing between me and getting out of here right now. And I'm literally trying to get around him. It was like, I'm trying to get around him, and he's talking to me, I get around him. I'm going in the parking lot, and I'm walking to my car, and I'm saying, I'm not doing it. I don't have time. I'm not doing it. I get in my car, I'm driving home, my voice is going up, I'm not doing it. I don't have time. I'm running a public company. I'm busy. I'm not doing it. Walk in, go upstairs. My wife's sleeping. Sit on the bed. I said, man, we got to do this Luis Plow thing. She goes, why? I go, I just lost this argument with the Holy Spirit on the way home. And I said, you know what? I'll do it. I called Dave Gibson up. I said, I'll do it. He goes, great. You're in charge of fundraising. We got to raise about $4 million. We got about 4 months to do it. Blessing to be part of this program, real blessing to do it. We're getting ready to have the event. It's in downtown St. Paul, and there's a gigantic BMX bike event. And this event's for the young boys and young men that are going to be coming. And right before, the day before we're going to do it, the main sponsor backs out. Meaning, big six-figure plus checks just left. And they couldn't do it because it was a Christian event. And so I go and I say, I'll do it through my company. Public company, I'm the CEO, but I said, look, just do it because we are just stuck. And so I get my wife and we're coming to the event and I go, we want to get in and out of here low key. I don't want anybody to know I did this. How do I just make sure we just do it? And don't want anybody to know. And Palau, thinking they're doing me a favor, has put the Lawson logo all over this BMX bike arena, giant arena, on all the ramps where all these kids are going to be taking off and doing all these jumps. Lawson logos everywhere. And I'm thinking, one of these kids is going to splat on that logo. Somebody's going to take a picture of it, and then everybody's going to say, hey, Jay, where'd you get the money, right? And I'm thinking, how do we, and my wife and I, and then finally this long hair. These guys had all these tattoos and stuff. They're all Christian tattoos, but they look at, and he's coming. Hey, you and your wife, come on up to this seat of prominence here, right in the middle. We can see the whole thing. My young boys at the time, they loved it because they're hanging out with these, biking guys, and the biking kids are doing all this crazy stuff. In the middle of this, they stop. Place is packed with teenage boys, and this long-haired guy gets up and starts to preach. And he's like, "Yo, dudes, isn't this sick?" I'm like, "Sick? Is somebody getting sick?" I couldn't even understand this guy. I could hear what he said in Scripture, but I couldn't. He was speaking in language I didn't even understand. I'm like, I can't get this guy at all. I don't understand him. He goes on for like 15 minutes. He goes, "You know what? If you accept," he does an altar call with all these teenage boys. He goes, "If you accepted Christ in your life, just now, raise your hand." I go, "Nobody's listening to this nut." He goes, "Better than that. If you accepted Christ, come on down into the arena here right now." And I'm going, this is going to be embarrassing. Nobody's listening to this guy. And 2 teenage boys come down. And then 5. And then hundreds. Hundreds of teenage boys come down into that arena. And it's at that moment why I realized God let a convict become a CEO. Let God use you wherever you are or whatever you're doing. Get out of his way and let him change the world through you, no matter where you are or what you're doing. I want to leave you with this and then open up to questions if you want them. I did a presentation similar to this a while back, and I went and picked up a friend of mine, and we were going to go bow hunting down in Buffalo County. And we're heading down in my truck and going down Highway 61, and it's a big, drop, big hill we're coming down. And it's raining, but it's really sleeting, and there's this big overpass of about 400 yards. And what I don't realize as we're screaming down in the truck is that overpass is a complete sheet of ice. And I'm driving, and I'm in the truck, and all of a sudden I hit the sheet of ice, and all of a sudden there's a car over here, and I'm here, and all of a sudden my car sort of goes out a little bit. And I'm like, hey, I've been living in Minnesota long enough, I got this. All of a sudden I went back, and I went, ooh, that went a little farther than I wanted. Came back this way, and now all of a sudden I'm spinning the car like this. I'm 60 miles an hour, I got like this. And I look over at my buddy, and he is frantically trying to put his seatbelt on. And I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be bad if we hit something dry, and boom, 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 boom. Rolls over. And I wake up, and I'm like, Lord, I'm in the mud again. My face is literally in the mud, the windows are out, truck's on its side. And my buddy didn't get his seatbelt on because he's laying on top of me. And now we got to figure out how to do some kind of Cirque du Soleil thing to get out of this truck, and push the thing up. And we're hurt, but not as serious as my other accident. So 2 things. 1, if I offer you to give you a ride home from here, you should respectfully decline. And 2, how much time do you think you have to get right with God? My friend couldn't even get a seatbelt on. Let God use you today, wherever you are, or whatever you do, and he'll change the world. With that said, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Questions?
Yeah, we're going to do the questions.
So, common questions I get asked. Who was the guy in the room? Besides the fact that he was an angel for me. Because, he just snuck in the room and snuck out. I went and found that my mother-in-law, who was a Christian, had told him what happened. He was a street preacher. Pretty crazy guy. When I went and saw him, met him, tracked him down, he was like speaking in tongues, pretty out there. And I was like, man, I just got to thank you for coming in and talking to me. He goes, it was nothing. I go, I think it was more than nothing. And he goes, it was nothing. I go, you still had to walk in the hospital room, And I really wanted to make sure I just said that prayer with him. He goes, oh yeah, we said that prayer, you were a mess. I go, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was, but I just got to thank you for doing it. His name was Pastor Paul. He passed away about 3 years ago. Great guy, great guy. So, but he was my angel,
So being a CEO and working long hours, how do you balance that and family and faith?
So the balance question is a really fair question. My company I run now is called True Balance. It's at the core of it. Because I think to be a good CEO, and I coach CEOs today, to be a good CEO, be a good leader, be a good manager, my attitude is you got to be good at work, you got to be good at home, and you got to be good in your community, all three. I'm currently president and CEO of a thing called Minnesota Adult, I'm chairman of the board of a thing called Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge, deals with drug addiction. I get more out of that, and I watch those kids come out of our program, graduate after 13 months, than I ever did anything at Lawson or XRS. So the community is important. When I talk to younger CEOs, they always tell me the first thing, I don't have time. I don't got time. And they're busy. And I go, you don't understand, it's not for the community, it's for you. For you. What you get out of it. And you don't get anything if you don't put anything in. So the challenge is, with me at Lawson, and even at XRS, is my normal fourth gear would have been, 50-hour week. I could quickly go to a fifth gear, which was, 60, 70-hour week. And I could go to a sixth gear, which was 80, 90, 100-hour week. And it felt normal. And I could do it. And it wasn't an issue. Except for who was I hurting? I was hurting my family. I was hurting my relationships. Ultimately, I was hurting my health. And I tell you the same thing I tell CEOs. You're in a marathon, not a sprint. And when you're sprinting, i.e. 100-hour week, you're not going to make it. Something will give. Something will give. So the real technique that I did is when I would do a lot of goal setting, I had my list where before my accident it was all about work, work, work. After my accident it was about faith and family and health and friends and work. But work was further down. Although work probably still took a disproportionate amount of time. But I would say every quarter I would look and say, how am I doing against my goals I set for myself? Which allowed me to separate what was important from what was urgent. And I would always be out of bounds every quarter. I mean, you could take a vacation for 2 weeks and you're out of bounds. The other way, right? I mean, good thing, energy giving, such, but you can be out of bounds. So for me, I would always say, what do I got to do the next 3 months to adjust from what I just did the last 3 months? And it was all about prioritization. And it really is about you all separating what's important from what's urgent, because you're getting hit with urgent all the time. John Wooden, the famous coach of UCLA, said, never confuse activity with achievement. And what I find with most men, especially a lot of leaders, they're busy. But I'm really not asking if you're busy, I'm asking if you're achieving anything. And especially if you got to prioritize the basketball games and the dance recitals. So a quick thing, my daughter was 8 or 9 when I went to jail, came out, she was probably 11, and she was a dancer. And she came home to me one day and she said, Dad, they got this thing at dance now called Dad and Daughter Dance. And I'm like, oh my God, please Lord, And I'm looking at her and she's like 11, and she said, we want to do this, Dad, and I'm going, I got new knees, I got pins here, I got plate here. And I'm looking at her and saying, I can't do it. And I'm crushing her. And right in front of her, I'm crushing her, and I go, of course I'll do it. Of course I'll do it. And we had practice every Friday night, for whatever period of time. I was Fred Flintstone, she was Pebble. It's on the internet. It's totally embarrassing. Go take a look at it, But we had practice every Friday night. And after practice, we'd go out and get something to eat, like pizza or something else. She goes to high school. We keep going out every now and then, maybe twice every 3 months. She does her undergrad in Boston. I go to Boston. We go out to dinner. She goes to med school at Georgetown. I go out to D.C. We go out to dinner. She goes back now. She's in residency working her butt off. When she has time, we go out to dinner. Who do you think that's important to? Her? Yeah, she would say so. She would tell you so. Who else?
You.
Me. But I had to prioritize it. I had to prioritize it. I could very easily have missed all that. I could have justified it. I'm sure I was busy. I'm sure I had to make time for it. You know, had to do it. The other thing I would tell you in this challenge of balance is, with men, is, you know, do you celebrate? When you achieve something, do you celebrate? The other mistake I find men doing is they just cruise right by it. Just go on to the next thing. And the reality is you should stop and celebrate. Especially you should celebrate and give yourself some energy-giving activity you might like to do, because life's a marathon, not a sprint. You know, whether you want to go out and hunt, whether you go out and fish, whether you go out and ride your bike, whatever you want to do, you got to celebrate. And ask yourself, what did you do right? What did you do right? Celebration is all about how you can then stay in balance, because you're going to have to be able to have the energy to go the distance. A lot of men will tell me, I'm worn out. Jay, how come I'm so tired? How come I'm so worn out? I said, what do you like to do? Well, I like to do this, this, and this. I said, when's the last time you did it? About 9 months ago. You wonder why you're worn out? When you got it scheduled? No. You're going to stay worn out. Balance is about trying to manage all those responsibilities, and you can't do it if you don't prioritize what's important from what's urgent. Because urgent will always trump it if you don't have a way of prioritizing it in your faith, family, activities, work, any other criteria you want. So what I would do is every 3 months I'd look at that. And that was the only way I did it, because I would always be out of balance somewhere.
Jay, when you describe the men in your life, your support, your accountability guys, what is valuable to you about that? What you give to that? What you get from that?
The question is about my groups that I have today. I have a Friday morning Bible study group. That's all different denominations, all men. I have a Monday group that's with couples. But the Friday morning one's probably the one I've been in the longest. And I would say to all of you, you need some kind of group. Accountability is part of it, you know, in terms of my actions and am I doing what I say I was going to do. But encouragement's probably just as important. I would say when I say that I've got it together and I don't need any help from somebody, and I'm going to handle this myself, and I've got it, I think Satan goes, I got Jay right where I want him. Let's send in the A-team, because I'm going to destroy him. When I'm surrounded by other Christian men, where I'm able to tell them what's really going on in my life, and I just share vulnerability with you, and it loses all its stigma if I can share the vulnerability, and I can build you up and you can build me up, Satan stands very little chance of beating those chains, and that's strength. But if I isolate, he's got me right where I want him. So I think this group, other groups you can be a part of, Christian men, extremely important. You know, because they're going to tell stuff to that group that I can't even tell my wife. I mean, you should be sharing everything with your wife, but there's some things you get into lust. It's a hard subject to talk to your wife about. But you can other men hold you accountable for it. Very important. Very important. Yes?
When you went back to work after healing up and jail time and all that, as a Christian, what kind of challenges does you face now? You know, I mean, you're in what I presume is pretty much a dog-eat-dog type of world.
Yeah.
Either in general or a specific instance where, with your faith and everything, being put to the test here, flashing in business world.
Yeah. So how was I different after my Christian faith in a very aggressive software world? Right? First off, I didn't lose my assertiveness because I was a Christian. I was still very assertive. But what I lost was my arrogance. I don't think I would have ever had as many followers as a CEO if I had not been humbled and I kept that arrogance up. And so by having humility, which if you read about leadership, I mean, you hear about Jobs, Steve Jobs and all that, but they're the exception. Most good leaders have humility. at the top of their list of traits. And that's what Christianity gave me. But to give you a real example, Lawson was a really big party place. Not that I stopped, I mean, if I drank, I would drink completely different now. But what they were doing is going out to strip joints. And it was an unsaid culture thing. And everybody went. And I went, and I was leading guys there. But now afterwards, I wasn't going anymore. And so I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just didn't go. And like, when they would go, I'd say, hey man, you know, I wasn't going to get on my high horse and judge you. I'm just not going anymore. And I wasn't the top of the food chain, but I was up towards the top. And when I didn't go, I can't tell you how many other guys stopped going. Because the peer pressure changed dramatically. And guys said, hey, Jay's not going. I'm not going. So there was guys right away saying they stopped going. In the next 2 years, it was the exception to the people who were going and doing that. The whole culture had changed. I didn't say a word. I just didn't do it. It was my actions that spoke way louder than anything. If I had to get up on my high horse and preached about how you shouldn't do it, wasn't near as powerful than me just not doing it and not going. And it gave the people who didn't want to go the right to not go. And it gave a bunch of other people to say, well, I don't have to do it either. And then eventually it went down to the shame was on the guys that were going. You know, and I'm sure they still did it, but it was a lot quieter and smaller groups. You know. So yeah, it was a blessing, you know, back in the work world. There's integrity, there's a bunch of other things too, but I think one of the biggest shames of the whole thing was when I first became a Christian, I was on fire for the Lord. I was obnoxious. And when I went around to the executive team, there was 3 or 4 Christians amongst the executive team. And they didn't know each other. I mean, they knew each other. They didn't know each other were Christians. We're like the best kept secret. And I'm like, stop being the best kept secret. And I was telling everybody because I didn't care. And you know, I was just on fire. But you know, once I started to do it, everybody else said, you know, it was okay to be a Christian. It's okay to be a Christian. You know, you can't discriminate against you. You know, it's okay to be a Christian in the corporate world. Yeah, I mean, you want to have Bible studies and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you need approval. I know a guy at U.S. Banks got a Bible study going. His HR department's giving him a hassle about it, but you can't stop him. You can still do it. So I think we are too quiet as Christians in corporate America. And I think there'd be a lot more than you even know as an unfortunate consequence of not talking about it. You know. Now, if that makes sense, or if you see that as well. So, I'm a public company CEO. You can't ask me something I haven't been asked. All right, I'll be around, guys. So if you have any other questions, but again, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.